We're continuing the interview with Eric Gostenik. He's the VP of Operations here at FarmBox Foods. Very excited to kind of explain the technical side, the processes that go through. We also want to talk about the mushroom farm that you're going to have, that you do have, and how that plays a significant part of your operations. You also mentioned right prior to this interview, you're like, we're the Ferrari of, of vertical farming or hydroponic. I'd like to, let's talk about that part. What do you mean by the Ferrari?
There's other companies out there that manufacture containerized hydroponic farms. Being new to the industry, we feel that we're now a threat to the industry in a positive way. We challenge the industry to improve and get better. Where, you know, in the past,
What are you doing better?
We have patents on our tube design and then just the overall finish of the unit. The tubes that we use are much more efficient than a zip grow tower or some of the methods that have been used in the past. And it also allows for us to use full spectrum LED lights, so which create a healthier plant, a truer color, and a quicker and larger yield.
So when you talk about the technical side, those lights not emulate, but replace the sun for growing, right? For the
exactly, yeah. And so what we're using is a full spectrum, which overall is like I said is better for the plant. There's other container systems out there that'll use like a red blue or a red green spectrum, and that's not providing the full spectrum of the natural sun. So being able to provide that just ends up meaning a much better product overall.
So you're actually trying to like simulate the sun here in the growth cycle of the plants.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
And does it produce? It produces a better yield. Is there like a percentage there better? Is it more nutrient dense? Is it? How does it help that process?
So the nutrient density has to do with how quickly you go from harvest to the shelf. So we're not losing any time there, since these can be placed behind restaurants, placed at schools, at educational systems. Really, wherever you want to place these, the food is there. What the light is doing is it's increasing the yields. If we use less spectrums of the light, it takes longer for that plant to grow. So for instance, to my left, I don't even know how this works on the camera side, but is our seedling tray. So on average, our seedlings go for about a week and a half to 2 weeks in this tray. That's because we use full spectrum LED lights. If we were to use a red blue or a red green, that could take 2 to 3 weeks before we're transferring those into the walls. So it's a much quicker process. And then once we go from the seedling tray to the wall, on average, it really depends. We're growing a lot of lettuce in here right now because this unit is owned by Centura. And so we're feeding 4 hospitals out of this unit here.
Out of this one right here?
Out of this here.
What we're sitting in?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So it's It's a supplement, and for Centura, they're all about food security. So food security is very important, of knowing where your food comes from. It helps them also tell a story to the patients that are staying at that hospital as well, saying we're not shipping your lettuce in from thousands of miles away. By the time it arrives, it only has 20 or 30% of the nutrient density that it started with. Here it's healthier. You can point to the box and say it's being grown right there. It's 100% nutrient dense when it's hitting your plate.
And you guys do a lab analysis on this nutrient density?
We do. There's a couple different companies that do tissue samples, and so at different times throughout the year, we'll send those off for analysis on there.
That's amazing. You also mentioned start to finish.
Yeah. So start to finish on both of our units. This unit has our seedling station here, where you introduce the seed to the peat moss plug, and it stays within that process the whole time. The roots take hold within that plug. It gets transferred into the walls, and then it stays there upon harvest as well and delivery.
Is there any acceleration on plant growth?
There is, because we're interrupting the traditional grow cycles. We don't have a traditional day and a traditional night. So this system is set up on a cycle to where it waters during a pattern that does not mimic the traditional day, so we can increase the yields.
There's some real brain power and scientific research behind this, and just forward-thinking thoughts on, okay, this is the normal cycle. Because what I was imagining when you were talking about the ultraviolet lights and the light cycles of blue, red, whatever colors you said earlier, I was thinking of the rotation of the sun on the earth, and how different parts of the world grow different plants on how that thing. Is that kind of a good analogy?
That's a great analogy. What's also nice about these units is that we can change the parameters. So if there's plants that grow specifically in the south, we can have a drier environment in here. Or if we need to go more humid, we can make all these adjustments in there. So when we talk about feeding the world, we're not designing a unit that only works in one climate. These units, since they're insulated units and they come insulated, the R value, and I might get a little bit too technical right now.
No, that's fine. I'm loving this.
is R19 on the sides, and then the R value on the top and bottom is R21, which generally
That's
equates,
like a house. Or a
it's
little bit
more,
a little more. Yeah,
a little more. These are, and that equates to about negative 40 degrees. So when you think about tribes up in Alaska, areas where their traditional grow cycles are only 4 to 5 months, this adds that additional time so now that they can grow year round and provide.
That is just simply, to me, mind-boggling that you guys thought of this. You really jumping forward, a revolutionary approach to it. We're talking about 2.5 acres for a year in one of these containers. What is the yield there for? And I haven't done the math, but I'm a big math guy because of my son. I have to try and keep up with him.
Oh yeah.
But he's so far ahead of me. But let's just say 10 people. I mean, how many people can you feed on these?
So it's a lot of people. We get a lot of calls every day, and sometimes there's questions that we start asking is, we get a call and we say, how long have you been thinking about this project? And then some people are like, well, I had a glass of wine last night. Now I'd like to feed my family. Well, how big is your family? Because we can feed 4 hospitals out of one unit.
4 hospitals.
So there's different harvest cycles that you can utilize. You could do a super hyper harvest, which restaurants would do. So the cook's going to come in, grab the ingredients that they need, pick whatever produce it is, and go. What we do for the hospitals is a weekly harvest. So a weekly harvest is generally 1 grow wall, front and back. So we have 3 grow walls in each unit. And that equates roughly to about 250 pounds of lettuce. We grow a lot of lettuce for the hospitals. And that's 250 pounds of lettuce a week.
That's the yield there is pretty amazing.
It is amazing, and that's lettuce. I mean, we talk a lot about lettuce. I think growing lettuce is boring because there's so many other things that these units can do.
I'm not a green guy. I was like
the peppers, jalapenos.
There you go.
And as long as it doesn't put too much weight into the walls, we can grow it. We're working on a system right now to create a system for rooted plants, so like carrots and beets. So a lot of this is.
Go ahead. I apologize. I interrupted.
So yes, we have a lot of different things that are in the works, which makes it really fun and unique about this company is that we have the institutional knowledge here. Everyone that's been involved with building the first unit is still with us, so we know our units really well. And when it comes time to making changes or wanting to introduce new ideas, it's a quick turnaround. We feel like we're not trying to parallel park a battleship. It's we're mobile.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's pretty amazing. So you mentioned also I want to talk about the mushrooms.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
We are very, very proud of the of our mushroom unit. When we talk about things that differentiate us from our competitors, the mushroom unit really stands out. We're the only company that manufactures both a hydroponic unit and a mushroom unit. What's neat about our mushroom unit is that it's also a start to finish process within a 40-foot container. So that means you're building the substrate for the mushroom or the mycelium to consume. So you're building the substrate all the way through a fruiting chamber. So our unit, I was about to say we have 4 chambers, but we just upgraded it to 3. That's what's really neat about being able to operate here in Sedalia, is that we get to do R&D on our own.
So you have an idea, like I could just walk out there.
Yeah. So we had originally the mushroom farm that we have here that we'll show you has 4 different chambers in it, and the 4 different chambers are the batch mixing or the prep room, the lab, the incubation chamber, and the fruiting chamber. Through operating that unit, we realized that we could eliminate a wall, create a larger lab area, and then have 3 chambers. So that unit, we advertise that it can do over 400 pounds of mushrooms a week.
Did you say a week?
A week. It's a lot of mushrooms, and these are gourmet mushrooms which sell at a high market value.
Right. That's exactly. But why did you think of mushrooms? How did that genesis of an idea?
So we had one of the individuals I was operating our farms came from mushroom experience. He was a mycologist. So he had this idea of, well, why don't we build a mushroom unit? And once again, going back to the size of the company, it's like, well, let's do it. It makes sense, right? It looks, we think we can make this work. We have the right fabricators. We understand the processes. We have our agritech system to help run it. And so we gave it a shot, and they nailed it. We asked, and you asked Chris about it, what kind of background do you have to operate these units? Mushrooms, if you look at growing mushrooms kind of overall, it might look confusing. But as long as you follow the processes, and it's the processes that we put in place to operate that unit, I learned how to grow mushrooms in one day.
Really?
Am I a mushroom expert? No.
But you're a farmer.
But I can grow blue oyster mushrooms about 400 pounds a week.
Really?
And
that's simply amazing.
We're also looking at new ways to organize our bags in the fruiting chamber to where I think we can get that number closer to over 500 pounds a week.
Out of one of these containers?
Out of one container. And these are mushrooms, there's white button mushrooms out there. Those are grown, it's a commodity mushroom. Those are grown in big warehouses and big horizontal trays. And the ROI it takes a while to make your money back on that. So ours is a gourmet mushroom unit, and it's made for growing varieties that that do sell at those high market costs. So the unit that we have in Tahiti is the only mushroom production in Tahiti. Tahiti's been importing all of their mushrooms, so they show up. They're very expensive. The quality
cross
is
an
very
ocean.
poor.
Yeah.
So the individual that's operating our unit is running those at about $40 to $50 a pound of mushrooms.
I don't know.
You're growing money.
What is money doesn't grow on trees. That is amazing. So what is the normal pricing? I'm not familiar with mushroom pricing other than what I get at the store.
So mushroom pricing for what we grow, it depends on what your outlet is. Right. Farmers markets, that's usually the top of the food chain for dollars per pound. And then selling directly to restaurants, if you sell to a distributor, they're getting a distributor price on there. Okay. So, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like in the sense of at $40-$50 a pound, that's pricey for a mushroom. Yes.
Okay, that's really what I was going.
That's pricey here. So the market here in Colorado doesn't sustain that. In Tahiti, absolutely, because he's the only one growing there, so he can kind of dictate that price.
They're on an island. That's supply and demand.
Exactly. So we have, for instance, with operating the farms here, we operate the farm here for R&D, and then also to show proof of concept. So months ago, we had two individuals that were delivering to about 17 different restaurants, and it was taking about 2 days to do that. We're a manufacturer, so that really didn't fit our business model. So we wanted to align with one distributor that would come once a week, pick up the mushrooms, and then distribute them to whatever restaurants they work with. The individual that we picked for a distributor owns a microgreen farm and has a fabulous business doing that. And he said, Eric, he's like, I don't know anything about mushrooms. And so we said, well, you already have the connection to the restaurants here. What if we give you 20, 30 pounds and just offer them out and see how it goes? So that went on for about 2 weeks. And then on the third week, said, Eric, I need 150 pounds a week. We're like, see how it's working?
Yeah.
And then the next week, it was, I need 250 pounds. And then he just sent me a text saying, can you grow 250 of blue oysters and 250 of king trumpets, which we can do. So, that business, it just showed how quickly that grew from from never selling mushrooms to now being a big mushroom. Well, just from a sales perspective, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And the value and also the quality of the mushrooms sounds like it's very high. Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing to be able to walk up to a restaurant and show them a bunch of blue oysters and say, these were actually harvested right down the road, instead of these have been brought in from California or Pennsylvania or halfway across the country. So
I'm gonna have to try and get some of our chefs to do it at our Latin Supper Club. This sounds.
Do you like mushrooms? Do you guys
I
like
love
mushrooms? We'll send some home with you guys. Some blue oysters that are rocking.
I'm in.
Yeah, yeah, they're good.
This is pretty amazing. So what do you consider your biggest challenge here?
The biggest challenge, Chris kind of hit it on the head, is that we can't build these quick enough. With being around for 4 years, every industry that we talk to, we could play a role in it to some extent. So it's developing the sales force and putting the focused time into these different industries. Because right now we have a lot of people coming to us, and that's great. I mean, it's it's a great place to be. But we've developed, we consider them swim lanes, and which are the different industries. So our challenge is putting focus on those industries and being able to have that time to really develop out those lanes.
What's the best part about working here?
The team. It's a group of individuals that they take their meaning very serious here. And then it introduces you to a lot of great people. People that come here that are looking at hydroponics are looking to feed people. They're looking to become more sustainable. It's the kind of social circle I'd like to integrate myself with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So we meet a lot of interesting people that come our way. And it's something new and different every single day.
It is. I mean, it's like I said, when Chris called me on Monday, I'm like, when can we, after I've reviewed what you guys are doing, I'm like, this is simply amazing. I love what you're doing. And I love the passion, the mission, the vision, and the people involved, because everybody just seems very excited and just to be here.
Everyone's excited to be here. And like I said, everyone wears multiple hats. So everybody's a farmer. So if you ask Rusty, what do you do? He's a CEO. He's a farmer also. Chris is a farmer also. So we all take time to make sure the farms here are up and running well. And it helps us be more knowledgeable for the customer of saying, I can run this farm from ground up. Let's tell you about it.
Right. That's got to be very exciting. Well, what do you have for us?
Well, no, I just want to say thank you very much for being here. Being involved in the restaurant world is something that we're prepared for. With the different varieties that we can grow in these boxes, and then also the size of these. These are 320 square feet, which equate to 2.5 to 3 acres of land.
What's the limitations on
watermelons?
Watermelons?
Yeah, we can't grow watermelons in the walls.
Can't throw them across? Okay.
Yeah. So, no, there's not that there's limitations on what can be grown.
There's limitations
to anything. So, there are variances that we're working on, like for instance, like rooted plants. We're working on a new tube design to be able to incorporate that. The limitations come from more of setting the correct expectations up front with customers.
And you just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, so that's what's nice about having these units out there, is that we've learned from trial and error. And our motto is, do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. And setting the correct expectations up front of, that these boxes do take time and they do take labor. Having involvement, some people think you just turn the key, open up the door every 2 weeks, check on it. These are living plants. And we just learned that, as far as limitations go, it's more just setting the correct expectations up front.
And that's part of that training, the people that buy these things, and just taking care of it, just like anything that is living. It requires some upkeep, some repair, some taking care of.
Exactly.
So, yeah, well, I thank you for being. I love this part of the discussion, all of it, every part of it. I'm just like really being a sponge today, and I love what you guys are doing. So thank you for explaining more of the technical side.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming out.
Okay, thank you.